Warren, if we look at the performance of your equity investment portfolio the last 3 to 5 years, some of the strongest performances come from Visa and MasterCard, which put up returns that were 3 to 4 times greater than American Express. Unfortunately, your holdings of the two names, which we assume were held by Todd or Ted, have accounted for less than 1% of stock holdings on a combined basis the past 5 years, while American Express has tended to be a top 5 holding, accounting for 10% of the portfolio on average and closer to 8% of late. Given that all three firms benefit from powerful network effects along with valuable brands, were there any particular reasons Berkshire did not ramp up its stakes in Visa and MasterCard to more meaningful levels, especially during those years when American Express was struggling? After all, you've shown a willingness to own several stocks from the same industry, holding shares in several competing banks and buying stakes in all 4 domestic airlines in fairly equal amounts when you picked them up in late 2016.
Yeah, when Ted and Todd, or either one of them, I won't get into which one of them specifically bought, or for that matter, they could both have bought Visa and MasterCard. They were significant portions of their portfolio, and there was no embargo or anything on them owning those stocks because we had a big investment in American Express, and I could have bought them as well, and looking back, I should have. On the other hand, I think American Express has done a fabulous job, and now we own 17 and a large fraction percent of a company that not that long ago we may have owned 12%. We've done it without spending time and without, it's a company that has really done a fantastic job in a very competitive field where lots of people would love to take their customers away from them, but they have more customers than ever, and they're spending more money than ever. The customers are, and the international growth has accelerated. The small business penetration is terrific. It's really quite a business, and we love the fact we own it. Like I say, it didn't preclude me from in any way from buying MasterCard or Visa, and if I'd been as smart as Ted and Todd, I would have. Charlie?
Well, we would have been a lot better in all of our stock picking if we could do it in retrospect. But at the time, we have a big position in American Express, and there is one tiny cloud on the horizon of the payments processors, and that is the system of WeChat in China. And so it isn't as though there isn't a little cloud somewhere off in the, and I don't have the faintest idea how important that cloud is, and I don't think Warren does either.
No, payments are a huge deal worldwide, and you've got all kinds of smart people working in various ways to change the payment arrangements.
To destroy what we have now.
Sure. And you've got some very smart people that are building a company, and American Express made a decision a few years ago not to bid as low as somebody else did to retain the Costco business. And I think Charlie and I disagree on this, but I think it was a smart decision. He doesn't think it was a smart decision, but one of us will be right. And one of us will remind you that they were right. But if you look at American Express, it's a remarkable company. I mean, they came after them with Sapphire last year. People want that business, and payments are changing. And you can see in different countries, different ways things are going on in that. And there are a lot of people that will play the game of gaming the system and switch from one to another based on the rewards on this card or that and all of that sort of thing. But there also is I think there's a very substantial group for which American Express does something very special, and they keep capitalizing on that premier position with that group, and they're doing it successfully around the country. And you'll see in the first quarter, you've seen in the first quarter, we're in Britain and Mexico and Japan, you're seeing gains of 15% or better in local currencies, and the base is not it's not tiny, but it's not huge. So there's a lot of room left to go in that, and the small business penetration is good. The loan portfolios behave sensationally compared to really just about anybody. So I like very much our holdings of American Express. The first half, because of the accounting changes, they had to suspend their repurchase program for 6 months, but they've announced that they expect to renew it, and someday we'll even, we'll own a greater percentage of American Express, and it'll be a bigger company, in my opinion, and I think we'll do very well. But as Charlie says, nobody knows how payments for sure comes out, and nobody knows how autos for sure come out. And that is true of a great many businesses we're in, and we've faced it before. We used to buy things that were certain failures, like textiles and second-rate department stores and trading stamps in California. Now we just face things that face real difficulty. So we're actually moving up the ladder.
Small piece of advice that's just a corollary on this, and then we'll get to your questions. And that is, as a general matter, as a one piece of specific financial advice, I would say, avoid credit cards. Just forget about them. We're in various businesses that issue credit cards. The American public loves credit cards. But if you start revolving debt on credit cards, you're going to be paying 18 or 20%. And you can't make progress in your financial life going around borrowing money at 18 or 20%. You can make a lot of money by lending it out at 18 or 20% over time. If you can find anybody that's good that will borrow from you. But you don't want to be on the side of the equation that's always behind in life. I was lucky. I'd saved about $10,000 by the time I got out of school. That $10,000 was really worth millions I might have earned later on, because after you get a family and everything, the expenses roll in. But those were my tools to work with, but it was only because I was ahead of the game. If you're behind the game by $10,000 at some point and paying 18 or 20% interest on it, you will never, you'll never get out of it. So the trick, I've got a partner that says, all I want to know is where I'm going to die, so I'll never go there. And that's true in financial matters as well. You want to figure out where you don't want to be ahead of time and avoid that. And I get about a dozen letters a day from people who are having terrible problems. And there are two reasons why they have terrible problems. One is a number of them have had health problems of some sort. I mean, they have really been hit by or somebody in their family has been hit by some kind of catastrophic illness. And that is it's a terrible thing to happen to any family. And they run up bills they can't pay, and really only society can solve that one in terms of protecting people against that. That's just plain bad luck. But the other one is from people who run up credit card debt, and they're facing bankruptcy, or they've been through bankruptcy once before, and they owe a whole bunch of money, and they can't even pay the interest, let alone pay any principal. And half of my letters come from people like that, and that problem is avoidable. Catastrophic illness is not, but credit card debt is something you bring on yourself, and it's way better, it's way easier to stay out of trouble than to get out of trouble financially. And I will guarantee you, if you run up big credit card debts, you will be in trouble probably the rest of your life in terms of your financial situation. On the other hand, if you get ahead of the game, even if it's on a very modest scale, so that money is coming in from investing, and people owe you money, or equities owe you ownership, you'll be way ahead of the game compared to paying it, always paying your creditors every month. So my advice to you is, if you can't pay for it, don't buy it, and get yourself in a position where you can pay for anything. And
my name is Martin Mitchell. I'm from Bakersfield, California. My question, two-part question, is concerning debt. We know that individual debt can be devastating. Are you concerned that the American consumer is so far in debt as a whole as to be a problem? And part two is, do you feel that our trade deficit with other countries is of concern to you?
Well, the first question about that, I think it's very hard to answer about the consumer as a whole. I get letters every day from people who have problems in life, and they revolve. I mean, they're either health or debt, and usually, frequently, the debt is connected with health. But it's been very easy for them to borrow money, and they're in over their heads, and it's all over then. And there's no question that the American consumer is somewhat more indebted in aggregate, but it's a very hard thing, I think, to come into conclusions about whether it poses a serious problem. Most people have had assets directly or indirectly that have gained in value enormously, particularly in real estate and some in securities. So there's a greater capacity to carry debt as earning power increases and assets held increases. I can't give you a useful answer in terms of the world as a whole, but I constantly give advice to young people, and those are the only people I talk to aside from our shareholder group. But just don't start out behind the eight ball. I mean, it's crazy to get in debt because it's so hard to get out of debt. And I mean, the idea of having credit card debt, and we issue credit cards in all our businesses, and and so does every other retailer. But the idea of trying to borrow money at 18%, and thinking you're going to get ahead in life, it isn't going to work. And I urge people to use their credit card, but I urge them to pay it off before it starts revolving, because it's too expensive. Charlie and I can't make money with 18% money. I mean, we're looking around for float because we don't want to pay 5% for money. And so I'm very sympathetic to people get in debt, but once you get in it, it is hell to get out. I mean, Charlie will have a few Ben Franklinisms to quote on that subject. In fact, you want to give a few from Ben now? He'd love to, but I let him into it the wrong way.